Drunk Turkey Steve and Interview Room Steve, that's two different people. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer, everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Okay, so the Interview Room was going live. I wasn't even home that day. I believe it was Sunday evening. I had already been pretty much offline most of the day doing other things around the house. Then I ended up taking the kids out to dinner, and that's whenever I started getting a bunch of comments and a bunch of emails saying, oh my gosh, they're live. Go over there, see what's going on. I just couldn't. I wasn't even home. So this morning, I'm recording this. It's pretty late at night right now. I don't know when this is going to be out because I have other things interview-wise. They've been making the rounds. They've been making the rounds so much that I am so ridiculously behind because life is insane and they are just completely everywhere. They've gone from YouTube to mainstream, back to YouTube. I don't know where else and who else they're going to end up talking to. We still have to finish going over the interview they did on Drunk Turkey. I have most of the one that he did on News Nation itself already done. Now, I noticed going into the one that he did on Ashley Banfeld's own channel that instantly she's asking him the exact same freaking questions, all the way down to, I always think about the families whenever this information comes out and whenever these documents drop, and I just wonder how y'all get this information and if anybody gives y'all a heads up. She literally asks him the exact same thing. So the only difference here is the costumes so far. Now, I'm not anywhere near done with that interview, but so far that is literally the only difference. She asks him so far the exact same sequence of questions, and I'm just like, okay, why didn't you just take clips of the interview you did on News Nation and post it on your own channel the way that Vinnie Politan does if this is what you were going to do, because you did nothing original, at least not so far. Her shirt is different and her hair is different, and he took off his Clark Kent glasses. That's about it. So I'm going to get the News Nation one up after I get this one out, and then I'm going to just do whatever is new when it comes to the Banfield one. I'm really only listening for stuff when it comes to Kaylee's injuries. And if there's anything false that's being said, like, I'm sorry. I don't care if it's somebody who thinks Bryan's guilty, if it's somebody that thinks that Bryan is innocent. When it comes to this case, the facts are what matters. We have to stick to the facts. And I'm trying to get through these interviews as much as possible so that we can get back to the actual facts before the 15th of May when we have a pretrial conference. Now, today is Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th. Again, I don't know when this video will be out, but there was a closed hearing today, a remote closed hearing in this case. We have no idea at this point what it's about. I don't think that some people's assumptions, Drunk Turkey, are correct whatsoever, especially whenever A, circumstantial as shit, okay, and B, Steve Goncalves himself, who's buddy with old Turkey Boy over here, is claiming that there's no way in hell anything in way of a plea will ever even be offered because Xana is rearing to go. He's ready to go out with a bang. He's not about to even do any sort of plea or anything like that. Now, if anything is being offered behind the scenes, it sure doesn't seem that way to Steve Goncalves. Now, I know that in some people's comment threads that I was scrolling through after looking at just titles, we're not even going to entertain all those IQ points I could be losing. We're not doing it. I read the comments, and most of them are on the same sentiment that I am. There's no way a plea deal is going to even be offered in this case with the publicity, with the far-ass reaching publicity, like the entire planet. I wouldn't be surprised if that one tribe that's completely like no contact to human civilization whatsoever has even heard of this case by now, for real. And I will say this. This is probably the most normal I've seen the two of them. They weren't amped up. Kristi cried, but Steve didn't get like overworked up. And it seemed really, honestly, like for real, a lot more natural than a lot of the stuff that we've seen. Now, I think maybe on Drunk Turkey, we saw a more, I guess I'll just say uplifted Steve, but only in like a way of like macho. I don't know how the frick I'm trying to describe this. I think he was only as animated and as like I'm going to kill the guy sort of guy because he was on there with wannabe macho man Daniel. You know what I mean? Now he's over here, he's hugging and kissing all over Kristi as she's crying and wiping tears away, and he's a big old softy bear. You know, you know what I mean? So I feel like he is an imprinter. He's going to read the room. He's going to match energy. I can't blame him. I do the same thing. If you get a bad side of me, it's because you came at me crazy, and now I'm giving it back to you the way that you dished it. If you don't like it, look at yourself. Not my problem. He sort of seems to be sort of the same way in way of like matching the energy around him. So again, I think he just sort of like feeds off whoever he's talking to, which again is a human and very natural thing. Everybody pretty much does do this. You know, it's no different than having that customer service voice. You know what I mean? Because I will say that Ashley Banfeld, the two, you know, being on the network and being on hers, there's not really much of a difference in Steve, again, besides the glasses being gone. His demeanor is exactly the same. But again, drunk turkey Steve and interview room Steve, that's two different people. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play this first clip that grabbed my attention. All of a sudden, Kaylee had a drastic career change. Like, she wanted to be a teacher for what seems like forever. And then, really close to the end of her graduating, she suddenly went left and got into this IT thing and then found a job that was going to take her as far south, almost to the edge of the country, as she possibly could be away from Idaho.
Maddie was doing marketing, and Kaylee did her general studies during school until like almost she was done. She wanted to be a teacher. She kind of backed out of that towards the end. Wasn't really sure what she was going to do with her degree, but then got her job at Extreme Networks and started the IT world.
So she was headed to Texas.
I really try not to get into a lot of those things because it creates a bunch of just speculative narratives, and a bunch of specifics come from things that really don't need to be specified right now. But I can't help but bring all of those thoughts out because where's the motive? Where's any answers for anything? And a lot of what seems to be coming true now is a lot of stuff that we heard in the beginning. So all of these things, the back and forth at King Road and wanting to all of a sudden change your entire career path for what you've been dreaming about being since apparently you were way younger, and go into something that's completely not related at all to your original plan. And again, something that could take you far, far away. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And it can lead to a lot of things. And yeah. It's a lot to think about. Now I'm going to play this next part. And honestly, if you've been here for a while, I'm not going to need to even explain to you why I find this so freaking ironic. But, you know, when it's over, I'm going to come back for the newbies.
How did UI come onto the radar?
UI, I think, was just, you know, it's close. That's where a lot of the kids go. It's a great university.
We would go down there and catch football games.
Yeah.
We do weekends.
You know, it wasn't
TV
far.
Domes in.
Our son was down there already. It was in
It's a
state.
great school for what you get.
Not far. You know, it's like 2 hours or something happened, you know, we could get down there, and it was, you know, perfect scenario.
Now again, this explanation is not needed. And I'll just say this. When it comes to something that she says later on in this about how she feels like there's some people out here on the internet that literally hate her, I don't know if that's like how I would say the word with how I feel about the situation, because one of the very first things that we learned is that this family received a phone call from a family member of Kristi's. I know the name. No need to repeat her name. Okay. Saying that Kaylee had been pew-pewed at a party the night before and she was gone. Okay, that's not like some rando. That's not a, hey, I just haven't heard from somebody. Do you know if she's okay situation? That's a straight up and a specific, and it's from a family member. That's like a trio, broski. Not only that, but something else that they make sure that they repeat in this scenario, and it's extremely important for a bunch of different reasons, is that people in the area and people that knew Kaylee and Maddie were calling the rest of the siblings, the rest of the children in the home on their phone numbers, on their social media, and telling them what had happened in like grave detail, things that were being talked about. And these kids didn't know who these people were. I remember in the very beginning, Kristi or Olivia, whoever was telling us the story, was like, they were running down the stairs saying, I don't even know who this person is. They're calling me and telling me that something happened to Kaylee. Who is this? It's just some random person calling me. And it's like, really interesting to think about that because, I mean, social media, yeah, you can go and see, okay, who's her sister? Who's she following? Okay, this is her. But some of them were apparently also getting phone calls and they were strangers. So if they were actual factual phone calls, does that mean that a whole bunch of freaking people's hands like touched the victim's cell phones? Because that is going to be just an even bigger issue than all the other issues. I don't know. I'm just going based off of all of the insanity and all the dumpster fire chaos that keeps just like being thrown up with a bow. But when they get a call from the family, from a family member, that something happens, when you are getting bombarded with people calling you over and over again and telling you that something bad happened, Kristi also reiterates in here that on top of the whole pew pew situation, of course, the kids were also being told that they had OD'd at the party before. So every single thing when it comes to what they were being told before they knew the truth, it was all the night before, the night before, the night before. Something happened the night before, something happened the night before. So how would this whole like night before situation be being spread around so quickly after the 911 call, besides the fact that Dylan was spreading a bunch of stuff around about something going on at 4:00 in the morning? Because how else is everyone else going to be reiterating that story? No one else would have really known the details of the conditions of the bodies at that point in time because no information was coming out from officials at that point. It had to have been all word of mouth from the people inside. It spread really, really fast. But the reason for the irony and the reason for why I said what I said is because with all of that, and there being multiple adults in that home, multiple older children, some of those children who had children of their own, neither Steve or Kristi went down there. So they did it a whole bunch for a whole bunch of irrelevant boo-boo beforehand. But they get this information and they sit on their asses in their house. Granted, they're calling around, they're trying to get answers. Okay, cool, but why didn't one of them at least leave? Why didn't somebody leave to go down there? They even saw the house on the news. They were calling Kaylee and Maddie and Jack and getting no answers, and nobody left. Nobody left. And let's just not glance over the fact that we were told 2 years later that for the very first time in their entire relationship, suddenly Steve is sick. And at around the same time all this stuff is apparently happening, he's at some like emergent care or something like that, you know. They just didn't tell us that at all. And then they just don't go down there. But they're watching the game. It's not like he was like in bed sick and couldn't leave, and so that's why she didn't leave. No, they were all watching a football game. And they didn't leave. But they could go down to watch the Bengals do stuff, you know. That's why. That's why a lot of people don't like them. Besides the fact that they're doing all this other crazy stuff. Which, I'll tell you now, when it comes to the GoFundMe stuff, if there are any of you out there that think that any of those tens of thousands of dollars that have gotten raised for the trial is going to go to help the other families also be there, please do not be mistaken, because no, it's not.
The horrible thing that happened being related to them being women.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The horrible thing that happened being related to them being women.
So Ethan just doesn't exist? I don't like this guy. I know a lot of people probably like this guy. I don't like this guy. He sits there with a weird eyebrow and a duck face on the whole time, looking like he's trying to take a cute selfie. And then he tries to get validation from Karen and Chris anytime he says something. Like, he'll say something and then he'll just look at them like a puppy dog with his eyes all wide, just waiting for their response. And then they move on and his face falls. But he does it very slowly so you don't notice. See, I can do that whole like psychological thing too.
I get where people come from. If you tell the truth, you got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like a gag order. Because once they say, "Whoa, they're hiding something," they don't want people talking about it. So it flips the premise, and then everyone's like, well, truth doesn't need to be hidden. So what's going on here? And yeah, so
he's not wrong. The truth is not ever supposed to change. If you truly have the answers, if you are truly being honest with your answers, then there's nothing to hide. But it's interesting how he has this sentiment here. But over on the Ashley Banfeld interviews, he's sitting there big gulping whenever he's talking about how he's come to like love and respect and really care about these guys, meaning the state, the investigators. Well, now he's over here on Chris McDonough's channel saying that, you know, obviously they're hiding something because this gag order, they're not allowing us to know any information. And he's not wrong, but where is that Steve when it comes to the mainstream channel? Where is that Steve's questions when it comes to being over there on Drunk Turkey? That's the kind of thing that he should be out here on the channels where it matters. Instead of saying how much he appreciates these guys, he needs to be being more upfront and honest. I agree with this very next sentiment regarding that situation.
In my career, I've never seen a gag order so broad.
I'm going to challenge it. When it's all said and done, I will challenge this.
Yeah,
this
I think you need to go to your legislators and get the Kaylee Act and make it happen. And we will support you 1,000%.
The Kaylee Act, it sounds like it would be something that they would put together to where the families would be able to get more information. It's interesting that the gag order makes it to where the families can't even know certain things. They can't get certain things back, but they're not wrong. This gag order is absolutely ridiculous. I mentioned the Long Island serial killer guy a lot whenever we talk about this, because whenever his arrest affidavit came out, the information came out, it was clear cut, it was concise, it had very easy to follow information, and it didn't feel like it was just full of nothing. You go back and you look at this probable cause order for the arrest of Bryan Kohberger, and it literally feels like you're holding a bag of Lay's potato chips. There's nothing there. It's full of words and it's hella long for no freaking reason, but it all really points to like nothing that really points anywhere. And it's put in there absolutely backwards to confuse whoever's actually reading it and make the story sound more real, when in reality, it is what it actually is, a completely reversed engineered situation. So yes, I agree that things need to change to where the families get more information. They're not kept in the dark. I understand whenever there's an open investigation and there's no suspect and they're trying to make sure that they don't have anybody weird coming in and trying to take clout for something that they didn't do, whenever they're really trying to protect the true integrity of the investigation. But this far in, this gag order still being there being no real answers to things. Is this really an indication that they truly are seeing that there's issues, but they just don't know how to voice those issues, or they just refuse to voice those issues because there's other motives that have now come along over the past 2.5 years of seeing what this can actually do for your pockets, I guess? I mean, I don't really know how else to put it. There's reasons why there's certain things not being done right here, and that's questions by the family. And I guess I should say families because we don't really hear it from anybody. Maybe they don't feel safe to come out and talk. I know that on Ashley Banfeld, he's very vague when it comes to them getting emails and correspondence stuff. But when it comes to stuff like this about the gag order and how frustrated he is and how he's going to fight it, how are you going to sit there and say that you respect and come to like these guys so much whenever you're planning on going toe-to-toe with them in court over this gag order? Because what else are we supposed to take from you plan on fighting it? And again, the law getting passed, hell yeah. Even though I have disagreed with 95% of what the hell has been going on when it comes to the behavior of the situation, something like that, hell yeah, this channel would be 1,000% behind it.
And when you get into this gag order and everyone's just sitting around pointing fingers and nobody's saying anything, it seems like such a cop-out. It seems like such a cop-out. Such a cop-out. And then the families are just stuck in the middle and everyone's like, what do you guys know about? What's going on? What's going on here?
Yeah. The speculation, the rumors, the lies.
But see, Steve also needs to realize that he does a lot of this to himself. He comes out here acting like big macho, like he has all this information, but now he's over here complaining about how people come to him and be like, oh, so you must know something because you're the family, and if you're not saying anything, that means that you're keeping a secret. So what do you know? What do you know? Well, when you come out here again with the persona that you know it all, you're going to get people asking that question. So if you don't want to be hounded so much, I mean, I know people should be leaving the families alone anyway, but don't come out here putting on this persona, basically inviting that kind of thing and then complain about it. if that makes sense.
So it's so one-sided now. It's like, oh, this person, we got to do everything for this one person. And it's like, there's two parties here. It's not just one party. It seems that it gets so one-sided.
And see, I understand exactly how they're feeling right here too. I can say that I have current issues with the innocence or guilt of the current defendant and still say that the justice system is screwed up because there's no way that the defendant should be getting more rights than the people whose lives were actually affected here. I know that more than a lot of people, unfortunately, and so do my children. If you've been here for a while, then you know that story. Long story short, for those of you who don't have any idea, my life was almost taken away. My kids' lives were very much threatened over and over and over again. And when it came down to it, they cared more about what the defendant wanted in way of me being there in person or me being able to be on Zoom in order to testify, me and my child to testify over Zoom. And no, he wanted us there in person. And instead of caring about our safety and really being more concerned about the fact that this man wanted me there within touch reach so bad after everything that he had already done, had threatened to do, had attempted to do, I could have easily been tracked back. I could have easily walked out of that courtroom and the worst happened. They didn't care about any of that. They didn't care about our safety whatsoever. They only cared about the rights of the defendant. See, that's where I have a problem. I am not the norm when it comes to the true crime community. I am not one way or another. There's always a gray area for me. There's a gray area in pretty much every single scenario. Humans just refuse to meet in the middle. That's why we are so broken. That's why we are the way we are. So when it comes to this, I understand that this gag order thing is supposed to be for him to have a fair trial and all these things. But don't you think that it would be a lot more fair if the Goncalveses were coming out there and spewing nonsense that wasn't nonsense? Don't you think that it would make more sense for them to know truth and facts about what actually happened to their child so that they were coming out here talking about truth and facts instead of also pushing their own wants in their own imaginations, in their own so-say conspiracies about what they believed to actually have happened that night because they're not getting any actual answers. They're going and trying to get answers from sources who don't have all the information. So they're giving them empty answers and they're clinging to them because those empty answers lead to the defendant being the answer. And that's not true, is it? At least not to most people that are following the facts, following the evidence, and waiting for the very specific things that we need here to finally connect. They're being really vague about a lot of things. They're not being descriptive where they need to be in order to make anything make sense. They're not really proving their case. And I know that the families desperately want this to be the right guy, but they can't just be okay with an answer. It needs to be the answer. Steve used to feel that way. And it seems like it comes and goes. I'm seeing quite a few different, I guess I should just say mood swings. I can't really say personalities, but there's a whole bunch of different emotions coming out when it comes to how he feels about certain things. And again, I think I mentioned this in maybe one of the Ashley Banfield videos. It might have been in this review video. I honestly don't know. I just know that I said this very recently. He sort of matches the person that he's with. So whenever it comes to Daniel, again, he's more just like that macho, I want to take this guy out type situation. And we've got all this evidence and it's locked down tight and we got this dude, bro. But then whenever he's over here in a more calm environment where he can slow down and he can really think, he's like, well, they're not really being too honest. There's this gag order. They're not telling us the truth and it's not fair because it makes us get a bunch of people asking us a bunch of questions that we technically don't have answers for. Like, there's the truth right there. They don't have the answers. So Daniel's basically been coming out, and all these other channels that are following these things are coming out and just giving a whole bunch of information. And the Goncalveses are now basically putting that whole thing to rest about it's not really up-to-date, true fact information. It's stuff they've been sort of clinging on to since before the communication got cut off. That's not doing this any good. It's not doing them any good mentally either. As much as I dislike their behaviors, let's just stop for a second, guys. This isn't good for anyone. The truth is the only thing that can heal this. And the truth is going to come out eventually, so what's the problem? Keep one or two pieces close to the chest, as they like to say, and don't let the families know these very small, intricate pieces that are going to just do the whole story in, but give them the information that they deserve. See, you can You can feel more than one way. You can be on multiple sides of things. It just takes a brain, you know? Be a human, a real one. Now, I put this part in here because I thought this was kind of cool.
They even have a connection, that school has a connection with our case. There's people there that went to school there and started a lab that was part of this investigation.
I don't know what the connection is, but we know that they're probably talking about Othram because Othram is right outside of Houston in the Woodlands. Somebody from the lab has some sort of connection to that school that their daughter is going to be going to. Now, I'm not going to play the clip because the simple fact this stuff was even mentioned really just got on my nerves. And I've mentioned this before with the way that they keep trying to push that Bryan Kohberger was stalking these girls online, was harassing them on Instagram. Again, unsubstantiated, not proven. And the accusing agency has even stood up and said that there's no proof of anything on social media and there's no stalking, none of the things. And I know there's probably going to be somebody who wants to come in my comments and say something about how the definition of stalking in Idaho is different, blah, blah, blah. We went over the definition here on this channel. The word surveilling or surveillance is in the definition, which means that anything in that definition of stalking, Bryan Kohberger is not guilty of. Therefore, if you're going to come over here and try to say, oh, because of the definition, it was surveilling and not stalking, go read the definition yourself because no, you're wrong. You're wrong. I say all of that because all of those things that they're trying to push when it comes to the defendant, they are still blasting their girls all over social media on a page with thousands and thousands and thousands of people that watch their every move. Okay, now it's one thing for their kids to post themselves in their own whatever information on social media. But whenever you're out here literally saying that this guy was stalking and surveilling your now deceased child through social media, but you continue to blast your other kids all over social media, that's not a good look. Sorry, not sorry. I'm going to call it what it is. That's a little bit weird that you keep just throwing your family out here in everyone's face like we need a reminder. We understand. No one's going to forget about y'all anytime soon. It's a little bit desperate. I'm sorry, but it is, especially whenever they come out here and do something like this. Kristi is sitting there crying literal tears about how their youngest child is going off to college. And not only do these two, sorry, not sorry, careless idiots say the state, but the city and the freaking name of the college where she's going, while crying about how nervous she is, about how scary it is that she's going to be so far away, and how she really hopes that people don't mess with her or recognize who she is, and that she hopes that she's okay, while you're giving out all of the details. The only reason why this portion got talked about is because, hey, they're really proud of the fact that she almost got a full ride. At the college she's going to, that's pretty expensive. I looked into that college because this child of theirs and my daughter Ariel are the same age, and that's a college Ariel was looking at before she moved out of state. So they could have almost been going to college together, starting college together at the exact same time. I don't know how well that would have worked out for the Goncalveses because they know who I am. They don't like me. My daughter doesn't have any ill thoughts when it comes to the victims. Again, Ariel is really just like super laser focused on Dylan. A little bit Bethany, but mostly Dylan. So it would have been interesting if they would have ended up at the same college together at the exact same time. That would have been, yeah. But again, I don't understand why they felt the need to put that information in there while also claiming that they're worried about her being so far away. But it is also interesting that now this is kid number 2 that's trying to get as far away from Idaho as possible, as far across the country as they could without actually leaving the country. I don't know what keeps drawing them here. It's interesting. I don't know if that family has any other connections to this area. It doesn't sound like it. They could, and I just don't know. I guess that's it. That's really the only pieces I saw that I really wanted to talk about. Now, there's a lot of other things. There's plenty of other things they said that are probably topics on other channels, but I just don't really want to entertain too many things that really are not all that necessary. Now, granted, a lot of people think that I really like nitpick the things that they say, but I really try not to. I go in and really delete a lot of the things that I do record when it comes to me having something to say about something that was said, because it doesn't, at the end of the day, have any relevancy to anything. It's just that I just don't like what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing and the things that I have been seeing. And so I am trying to not go so hard on things that don't actually matter. But there's a lot of keywords and a lot of things they do say that do matter. And I really just wish that he would sort of keep a balance. I wish that he would remain the same in all of these interviews so that we could get a better idea about what's actually going on that side of the camp. Now, granted, that doesn't give us a full view, but if we take the information from the defense, we take the information from the state, we take the information from the court, we take the information from the families, and we try to just piece it together a little bit at a time, find the consistencies, that would help a lot. But whenever there's inconsistencies on all sides, it makes it impossible, and it really makes you wonder just how intentional it really all is. But again, that's it. If you guys watched the interview of Kristi and Steve over on the interview room, let me know, and let me know your thoughts about it down in the comments. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you were not subscribed already. And please don't forget to make sure that that notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.